Welcome back to Dan Recaps. Today, I'm going to explain the movie Cody the Robosapien, released in 2013. The movie opens at Kintech Labs, where an inventor named Alan Topher is test running a robot he designed for search and rescue missions. He has named the robot Cody. As military personnel and officials from the lab watch, Cody finds his target at a military airbase and creates a distraction to draw out the security officers. Cody frees the target and the officials are notified the mission was a success, and everyone in the control room is very impressed by Cody's performance. The robot and the target are both then picked up and returned to Kintech headquarters. The Admiral is impressed and wants to talk with his superiors about buying Alan's robots for military purposes. Alan, however, isn't too happy with the Admiral's proposal as he doesn't want his robot to be weaponized. Elsewhere, 12-year-old Henry Keller is preparing to leave for school. He is a tech protege who has built a lot of cool gadgets that he keeps in his room. His mom, Joanna, yells at him to come down for breakfast and hurry off to school. But Henry is busy test running his invention for the regional science fair. When he comes down, he reminds his mom about the big science competition, but is disappointed to learn she has to work and can't make it, though she promises to be there next time. Henry's sister Megan calls him a nerd, which prompts their mom to suggest she go to the fair instead, but she refuses. As the family heads out, Joanna nags the kids for being lazy and not cleaning the yard, but Henry says he was too busy with his big science project. Back at Kintech, Alan is running some tests on Cody, who notices that Alan is tired and offers to make him a cup of coffee. He leaves as Mr. Porter enters, and Alan tells him Cody exceeded their expectations in all regards, even learning to feel and rationalize human emotions. But Mr. Porter insists that Cody is just a robot and can't possibly understand emotions. He tells Alan that he doesn't need Cody to feel, but Alan remains adamant that Cody should not be weaponized. Later at a meeting, Mr. Porter meets with Mr. Espinoza and reveals he does intend to make Cody into a weapon of war and begins preparations for a demonstration where Cody will carry nuclear weapons. Shortly after, Kintech personnel bring in a weaponized and upgraded Cody. Mr. Porter begins the demonstration where Cody plants a bomb underneath a container ship. He does so successfully, and the duo watch as the bomb detonates, destroying the ship in a ball of fire. Impressed by this display, Mr. Espinoza immediately requests he deliver these weaponized versions of Cody as soon as possible. Mr. Porter excitedly says he will have them ready in a week and receives a large down payment. Mr. Espinoza becomes serious, threatening to harm Mr. Porter if he doesn't make good on the deal within a week. Meanwhile, Alan is alarmed by the explosion and hurries to see what happened. He then learns about Mr. Porter's agreement that Cody will become a weapon of death and destruction. Alan argues that Cody was meant to save lives, not destroy them. But Mr. Porter is tired of his objections and fires him on the spot, calling security to escort him from the building. At the science fair, Henry has built a machine that could be an alternative solution to the world's power shortage, but is sad because no one came to see it. Then Warren, the school bully, comes over and ruins Henry's project, but he is disqualified from the science fair for doing it. Back at Kintech, before Alan is thrown out, he deletes all Cody's files from the company's servers. While Cody acts as a matchmaker, working to arrange a date between Alan and the receptionist. While security is distracted, Alan attacks them and runs off with Cody. After the science fair, a jealous Warren attacks Henry for winning the top prize. He breaks his trophy and chases after him. Elsewhere, Alan arrives at his apartment where he programs Cody to run whenever he sees a Kintech official. Cody doesn't understand why he must be afraid of these people, but before Alan can explain, the place is raided by Kintech security. Cody begs Alan not to send him away, but Alan promises to come back for him and tells him to run. Cody runs for his life, dodging bullets while asking what he has done wrong. He still doesn't know he was going to be weaponized. With nowhere else to go, Cody falls from the roof and lands in a dumpster. At the same time, Henry runs from Warren and decides to hide in the same dumpster. The bullies call his name, but Henry remains quiet until they give up and leave. In the dumpster, Henry finds a robot leg. Curious, he searches around and finds more and more robot parts until finally finding the rest of Cody's body. Henry decides to take him home, but is worried what his family would think, so he tries to sneak into the house. His mom greets Henry happily as she was beginning to worry about him and congratulates him on winning first place. Henry then rushes up to his room and begins to reassemble Cody. When he is complete, Cody wakes up but malfunctions and starts thrashing around Henry's room. Joanna hears the noise from downstairs and hurries up to Henry's room with a bat. But Henry hides Cody in a box and lies to his mom, saying he has girl problems and doesn't want to talk about it. His mom is hesitant, but Henry assures her again and she goes. Henry lets Cody out of the box and they begin to play. Cody has lost all his memories in the accident, but after looking at his code, Henry decides to name him Cody. Henry shares with his new friend that he is lonely, but when Cody starts asking too many questions, Henry gets annoyed and decides it's time for bed, allowing Cody to recharge his battery with a solar panel he had created. Meanwhile, Mr. Porter and his men search for Cody, while Alan tries to find him using the tracker he implanted in the robot, but becomes worried when he finds Cody isn't transmitting a signal, as he doesn't want him to fall into the wrong hands. With time running out, Porter asks Alan to build them a new robot, but he refuses, saying that he will never make another robot because of men like Porter and Espinoza. This infuriates Porter, and he responds with threats, but Alan still doesn't give in. As he leaves, Porter orders his men to keep an eye on him. The next day, Cody insists on going to school with Henry, but he thinks it's a bad idea. But after much begging, Henry relents and finally agrees. In class, Cody dances for everyone and answers difficult questions, impressing all his classmates. Now that everyone knows Henry has this cool robot, everyone wants to be his friend. Cody notices that Henry has a crush on one of his classmates, Jenna, but he feels she could never be interested in a guy like him. But Cody just calls him a coward. So later, he helps Henry try to ask Jenna to the school dance, but ends up blowing it anyway. That night, Henry tells Cody he is the best thing that ever happened to him. But Cody wants to meet his family, so when Henry is asleep, Cody goes to Megan's room, who is startled to see a talking robot. Cody scurries back to Henry's room just as Megan barges in and yells at Henry. The noise wakes their mother, who also hurries to Henry's room. Henry is then forced to tell the truth about Cody, how he had found him in a dumpster and fixed him. Joanna is reluctant to let him stay, but agrees when she learns Cody has no memory of who he was before. The next day, the family visits the park, and there too, everyone loves Cody and Henry. Megan is not happy that her mom treats her like a kid, and when Joanna refuses to let her drive, she lashes out, blaming her for their dad abandoning them. At night, Cody realizes that Joanna and Megan are hurt, so he tricks them into talking to each other, and Megan apologizes for her cruel comments. The next day, Cody decides to cheer the family up. He redecorates their house and fixes up an old car for Megan so she can finally drive. Now, the whole family is so happy to have Cody in their lives. The next day at school, Henry and Cody beat Warren and his friends at a game of basketball. Furious, Warren attacks Cody, which shocks him into regaining his memory. He remembers everything and tells Henry that Alan is his dad and he is in danger. Until now, Porter had no luck finding Cody, but one of his henchmen spots Cody with the Keller family and reports back to his boss. Porter immediately sends his men to capture Cody and bring him back to Kintech. When Henry and Cody find Alan, Cody reveals he doesn't want to leave his new friend. Henry also doesn't want him to go. But Alan warns him that Kintech is very dangerous and he doesn't want Henry getting into trouble. So Henry returns home alone, once again sad and lonely. Missing his new friend already, that night Cody tells Alan he wants to see Henry again, and Alan agrees. The next morning, they visit the Keller family, and over breakfast, sparks begin to fly between Alan and Joanna. Feeling guilty for taking Cody away, Alan delights the family by giving the robot back to them. But suddenly, Kintek arrive and threaten the family if they don't give up Cody. Cody and Henry make a run for it and are chased across the city by Kintek's men. They are eventually caught and cornered, but Cody reveals it isn't over yet as he activates his jetpack, rocketing off into the sky with Henry. After they find Megan, they try to call their mom, but find she and Alan have been kidnapped by Kintek and will only be released if Cody comes back to the lab. With no other choice, Megan, Henry, and Cody decide to save Joanna and Alan and take down the evil Kintek. Back at Kintek, we see that Mr. Porter has created more Robosapiens for military use and just needs Cody's programming to complete them. On seeing this, Cody discovers another new function of his. Rewriting the program, he controls all the robots to attack each other, causing chaos. Meanwhile, we see Alan and Joanna are tied up. He apologizes for putting her family in this mess, but Joanna says she is happy Henry found Cody, as she would have never met him if not for the robot. However, their sweet moment is soon interrupted as Cody comes to their rescue. Mr. Porter begs Alan to deactivate Cody, but he refuses. The family fight to take down the security team before a group of federal agents arrive to put an end to the madness. Alan, Cody, and the Kellers celebrate the victory as a family and all return home together. Sometime later, we see Henry alone at the school dance. Suddenly, his crush Jenna comes over and asks him to dance. Henry agrees but warns her that he is a terrible dancer. But Jenna insists he can do anything because he is a Keller, and they join the dance floor. Megan, Alan, and Joanna all enjoy the dance as a family, while Cody cheers everyone on, dancing around the party. He has his perfect family now, and he is happy. That was all from the video. Subscribe for more content like this, and leave a like to help the channel out. Also, leave a comment if you want us to recap your favorite movie. Take care!